Alright guys, we are going to talk about the climates on Earth. So we've already talked a little bit about weather, or a lot of bit about weather I should say, and we know that weather is the atmospheric conditions over a short period of time in a particular area, usually determined by masses of moving air. So just huge air masses, hot, cold, high pressure and low pressure systems which cause wind, masses of air meeting each other which cause all the storms, so warm fronts and cold fronts. Now we're going to move into climate, and climate is essentially the long-term average weather that exists in an area over time. So we're going to look at the different climates, and climate for the most part is determined by two main factors, and that would be the temperature and the precipitation, so the amount of water that falls on that area. So the climate system we use was developed by a man named Vladimir Köppen around 1900, and it uses two major factors, as we said, temperature and precipitation. He grouped them into 6 broad climate regions. So there are tropical climates, dry climates, temperate marine climates, temperate continental climates, polar climates, and the highlands. Now these 6 broad regions can be broken down into more specific regions to better categorize them, kind of based on what temperatures they experience and how much precipitation they receive. So the first one we're going to talk about is the tropical climates, and the tropical climates can be separated into tropical wet climates. They get year-round heat and heavy rainfall. These tend to be dense forests, and these are also known as rainforests because they get so much rain. And they tend to look like this. There's your tropical rainforests, or your tropical wet climates. Then you have your tropical wet and dry climates. These have less rainfall and definitely have distinctly dry seasons and distinctly rainy seasons. And these you would see on savannas or grasslands. So kind of what you'd see in Africa. So here's a picture of where the tropical wet and dry lands are. Notice we have a lot in South America, Central America, Africa, in the lower part of Asia, and the upper part of Australia. And for the tropical wet, or where the rainforests are, a lot of them in Indonesia, a few of them in Africa, and then a few of them in South America and in some of the islands in the Caribbean. Okay, the next area we're going to talk about is the dry climates. So dry climates can be separated into 2 subcategories, the arid regions and the semi-arid regions. So arid means dry. So arid regions are also called deserts, and they get less than 25 centimeters of rainfall a year, which is a really small amount. And then you have semi-arid regions. These are also called steppes and are usually located on the edge of deserts. They get enough rainfall usually for short grasses to grow. So there's what your arid region looks like. And that's what your semi-arid region looks like. Notice how there are little shrubs and grasses, so it definitely looks different. In this map, it shows both the arid and the semi-arid. The arid regions, the ones that look like this, are the dark orange in this map. So you'll notice there's a lot in Australia, a bunch in Africa, in the Middle East right here, and the southern United States, a few in South America. And then the lighter yellow is the semi-arid regions. Notice that Colorado actually, a decent amount of Colorado falls in this category of semi-arid regions. You can see that there would be Colorado right there. You can see it has some yellow. All right, so the temperate marine climates can be dissected into 3 main categories. We've got the marine west coast, which is humid air. It brings cool, rainy summers and mild, rainy winters. You have the humid subtropical. These are climates that are wet and warm, but not as hot as the tropics. And then you have your Mediterranean. These are the summers that are drier and warmer, and winters are cool and rainy. So this is what it looks like when you have a marine west coast. It's essentially, obviously, right on the coast, says the name. And so humid air exists because you're right next to a body of water. But you're right on the coast, so you tend to get winds or cool air. And you're rainy, okay, and mild rainy winters because you are so close and because the air masses that are coming to you are cooler generally. Then you have your humid subtropicals. These are climates that are wet and warm, but not as hot as the tropics. And then you have I'll move me, your Mediterraneans, and these are the drier, warmer winters with cool and rainy, or excuse me, dry and warmer summers and cool and rainy winters. So for the marine west coast, okay, obviously you'll find them on the west coast, but they do make up a big majority of Europe because it is so small and surrounded by water, so there's a lot of that there. You'll notice they exist a lot anywhere you're going to get winds that are cooler rising up or rising into it. So remember, we're getting the polar winds here, so we'll get the marine west coast there. Then we have the humid subtropical. Again, these are like the bayou and in Louisiana and all of that stuff, also in South America and in Asia. And then you have on the west coast of the United States, and then obviously in the Mediterranean, you'll get the Mediterranean climate. The temperate continental climate can be dissected, it's only in the northern hemisphere, and it can be dissected into the humid continental, which has constantly changing weather, and the subarctic. And this is the line north of the humid continental. And these summers are short because it's so far north, and the winters are long and really cold. So this is what the humid continental looks like. And this is what the subarctic looks like. Very bitterly cold in the subarctic. So this is where you can find the humid continental. You'll see a little bit in Colorado here, but mostly a little further north in like Montana and then into Canada. And then a lot of Russia is covered in this and a lot of Asia. And the subarctic is exactly where you'd picture it to be, just below the Arctic Circle. You'll see all this pink, that would all be subarctic, so bitterly cold temperatures. You'll notice some a little bit lower here, and that's mainly caused by the mountains, which we can talk about next time. Then we have our polar climate. The polar climate can be dissected into ice caps and tundra. Ice caps are covered with ice and snow and are always at or below freezing. They tend to look like that. And then you have the polar tundra, or the tundra, and this is short, cool summers, but it definitely gets warm enough where you get little tiny grasses. So it's not completely barren like here that has no plants because it's too cold for the majority of the year. Tundra does have some summers which allow small grasses to grow, but they are bitterly cold winters. So the ice caps are found mainly in Antarctica, and then you'll notice that in, I believe that is Greenland up here, has a lot of the ice caps climate. The tundra can be found on the edge of the polar Arctic circles and on the edge. So basically the ice caps cover, and then these guys, anywhere that the ice caps are, right on the edge of those is the tundra. So they border those ice caps. And then finally is the highlands. The highlands is temperatures fall as altitude increases. That makes sense. So as you go up in altitude, the temperature is going to decrease just as it does in the atmosphere. Remember, we're in the troposphere. As altitude increases, the temperature decreases. The highland regions are colder than the regions that surround them. You'll notice we do have some of those highlands here in Colorado, and anywhere basically there are large mountains. So here is where the Himalayas are. There's some mountains that go through Europe and through Africa where Kilimanjaro are, and in certain locations in Fiji and the Philippines. And this is kind of what they look like. If you've ever seen a picture of Machu Picchu, that is in the highlands. All right, and that is the climate regions. I hope that made sense. Thank you.